Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. I love the Wu Lin. From the moment they appeared in For Honor and Marching Fire, they have been an outstanding addition to For Honor, and as a researcher and scholar of Asian culture and history, the chance to explore and play as the Chinese faction was such a treat. Sure, I'll admit they had a rocky start, and I know that there are many who still hate them, but I will always consider the Wu Lin to be among the most fun and engaging faction. With one minor problem. Their lore is absolute garbage. I don't know what it is about the For Honor lore writers, but they have just been terrified to even try and expand on the Wu Lin's lore. Other than Zhan Hu, none of the Wu Lin heroes have individual trailers. Their lore can only be explored by going to the For Honor website or wiki, and even then, that's very vague and marginal. They've only had 2 hero skins. Oh wait, nope. 3 now. They've had 3 now and 1 accidental one, and as of this year, their number of heroes has been surpassed by every other faction, including the Outlanders, who came out literally 2 years after their inclusion. It actually irked me to hear Viking fans bitching and moaning about not having more heroes, when even before Varangian Guard, they still had more heroes than the Wu Lin. Yes, please whine louder when you had 7 heroes compared to the Wu Lin with effing 5. Now, luckily, the Wu Lin will finally get a 6th hero very soon, which I'm grateful for, even though it's still not even close to what the others have, but it all still raises a major question, right? This still all raises one major question. What is it with the Wu Lin? Why is their lore so vague? Is their lore even as vague as I'm saying? What have they been doing? What's going on? Why haven't they staked any claim to the faction map? Where's their emperor? What is going on with the Wu Lin? Today, I want to talk briefly about the Wu Lin and what's been up with their lore and what I think should have been done and what can still be done with them. So let's get into it. The Wu Lin, as of right now, have done next to nothing in the lore. They first hit the scene in Year 2, Season 4, known as Marching Fire, where the lore very vaguely stated that the Wu Lin had invaded Heathmore from a neighboring land that was plagued by endless civil war since the Cataclysm. After that, the Wu Lin don't participate in the lore again for a whole year, not until Year 3, Season 4, Sunda. In this season, it's revealed that the remnants of the Blackstone Legion, who would eventually become the Order of Horkos, invaded Chiang Pass after the Zhan Hu Sunda accidentally blew up a part of the palace. And though the Wu Lin attempted to help their Emperor Gaolei escape, they ultimately failed. He would be exiled, while the Wu Lin would be left to the mercy and control of the Order of Horkos. Now, with this season, we got the first new Wu Lin hero, and the last one we'd have up until this season, but we'll get into that later. But it also revealed kind of a running pattern with the Wu Lin. They're destined for mediocrity, but we'll get into that. After that season, the Wu Lin won't have any major relevance in lore again until, and I'm not making this up, almost 4 years later. No, I'm not joking. After Year 3, Season 4, we went into Year 4, which focused on the rise of Horkos and Chimera, not really dedicating time to any individual faction. Then in Year 5, we had the results of the war between the two covenants, where we saw time dedicated to the Vikings, the Samurai, and the new Outlanders, the Pirates, but not the Wu Lin or the Knights. However, the Knights would get their due in Year 6, where we had 1 season dedicated to the Knights, Season 2 dedicated to the Vikings, then the arrival of Medjay, of course, and Season 3 dedicated to the Samurai. Season 4, which might have gone to the Wu Lin, instead went to Arabia and the Ephira. It wouldn't be until Year 7 that we finally got some clear progression of lore for the Wu Lin. In Season 3 of Year 7, known as Deceit, the Wu Lin, given a generous donation of treasure by Astria, would host the Ghost Festival in an attempt to trap and ensnare the Heathmore leaders in a sort of spiritual trap. But this spiritual trap would backfire with the arrival of Bai Gu Jing, and only the arrival of Sun Wukong himself would turn the tide. And with Heathmore saved, the blame fell on the Wu Lin, of course, and they were again forced to flee and lick their wounds. Once again, a season for the Wu Lin relegated to their own mediocrity. Yeah. Then skip over to Year 8, and the Wu Lin finally get another bit of lore. General Zhe arrived to trick and deceive Astria with a promise of an alliance, only to backstab her with his true alliance alongside the Hatun. So it's not even really the Wu Lin doing anything, it's their allies, the Hatuns, doing things, but that's fine. At least the Wu Lin get mentioned and noted. Guljin promises control of the Wu Lin to General Zhe, and at last, now in this final season of Year 9, we see the new lore for the Wu Lin revealing that General Zhe is performing a hostile takeover of the Wu Lin by force of arms, with only Prince Yi remaining to stand against him, alongside the broken remnants of Chimera, who decided to stand alongside him. We will get a new hero a little bit later this season, which will be the first hero for the Wu Lin since year 3. I want that considered for a minute. 6 years later, literally 6 years later, we are finally getting a new Wu Lin hero. Are you guys noticing a pattern with the Wu Lin in terms of their lore? I brought it up earlier, but I'll repeat it here. Since their introduction, each of their seasons involves them either getting their asses kicked or attempting a sort of deception or underhanded tactic to take their opponents by surprise, with the only exception of this being in this season between Yi and Zhe, though the season is still young. In every instance they are brought up, they are largely inconsequential, not leaving a major impact on the world at large, and only providing the most minor of relevance. In fact, I would honestly make the argument that if you removed the season Deceit, the season with Bai Gu Jing and Sun Wukong, if you just removed that season entirely, I don't think the lore itself would notice or care. Now, I already hear some of you out there pointing out the obvious rebuttal. This focus on deception and underhanded tactics is thematic, as it ties into Sun Tzu's famous phrase, all warfare is based on deception. And fair enough, that is something said in The Art of War, I grant you that, but do you think that's the only phrase about war in the book? Do you not think that other philosophies of war could be explored or touched on? Hell, let's put philosophy aside. Do you realize that in the last 2 years, only The Journey to the West and The Romance of the Three Kingdoms have been drawn from as inspirations for the Wu Lin's lore? Could you not look to China's history in general, its other leaders, commanders, exploits, and beliefs? What about weapons? We hear often that the developers of For Honor first look to a weapon and then construct a hero around those weapons. But right now, we're waiting on the 6th Wu Lin warrior. Are there no other Chinese weapons to draw from the ones we have? Not the Xi'an sword, which I've been begging for ages? Or, put that aside, the Zhebian whip chain? The Chui heavy hammers? The Yue Yachan Shaolin spade? And there are any number of Chinese halberds that could be looked to. Right there, I have named 5 weapons of Chinese martial arts alone that you could draw from. And if you need inspiration for heroes, well, we're not short of Chinese historical and cultural figures, are we? You've already shown you're willing to draw from Cao Cao, Sun Wukong, Guan Yu, and Liu Bei. What's to stop you from going further? Get Sun Quan in there. You know, get Lu Bu. You know? Zhang Fei. Mulan. I wouldn't mind if you drew from Mulan. Hell, I kind of thought you were going to go there at some point. She seems kind of obvious to draw from. Look, the point I'm making is that the Wu Lin have been slept on. The lore is honestly weak and inconsequential. I said it before and I'll say it again. The Deceit season was meaningless. You could have removed it and no one would have noticed. Do you want the Wu Lin to be an actual presence in this world or just a laughing stock? They went from being a real threat to Heathmore, to being Horkos's bitches, then to the weaklings who had their own trap backfire on them, and only recently have started gaining some of the nobility and awesomeness that they were promised upon their arrival 7 years after the fact. Now, guys, this may shock you, but I'm not a complete idiot. I know some of you may say, chill out, Raven. We're getting their lore now and a new hero. Sure, yeah, it's late, but at least we're getting it. What are you bitching about? Well, first of all, I'm not bitching as much as I am making an observation, while also presenting a clear warning. The observation is this. The Wu Lin have been largely overlooked in the lore, and I'm very worried that if there is a year 10 of For Honor, they will be quietly pushed aside again. And as for my warning, it is this. If For Honor wants to survive, it must, not should, must take advantage of what it has at its disposal. Do you realize that the history of China is a perfect reflection of what For Honor should be? For Honor, at its core, is the story of civil war internally between 3 factions within a continent, fighting amongst themselves to determine superiority and power. I'm sorry, Chinese history is that in a nutshell. Look at the wars for dynastic succession and tell me that doesn't fit perfectly. Hell, just draw from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. For Honor's already divided into 3 nations. Do what they did. Reveal heroes, create grand plans and battles that take up whole seasons, show intrigue, loyalty, nobility, deception, hostility, austerity, build up glorious leaders and sinister villains. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with new factions like Horkos and Chimera. You don't need repeat plot points of bad guy does bad thing to new moral hero, so moral hero arrives to punish them, as you did with Ephira and Ocelot and Medjai. War is an ugly and chaotic affair, but it also has moments of glory and beauty. That's why there is an art to it, and the Chinese recognize that art to it. China's brutal war history is a perfect cauldron of possibilities. The fact that the Wu Lin have been so ignored is a testament to where this game is falling off. You have been handed the formula to success, but you set it aside in the belief that you could do better with less. You added the Outlanders. And while I'm not going to say you were wrong to do so, quite the opposite. I think the Outlanders were an inevitable outcome. If you wanted to keep adding heroes, the Outlanders were going to happen. But you added the Outlanders when you haven't scratched the surface of the Wu Lin invaders that you already added. You should have, no, I'm serious, you should have had a whole year dedicated to the impact of the Wu Lin on Heathmore in year 3. When they were revealed in year 2, you should have spent the next year talking about what the Wu Lin did to Heathmore. You should have revealed its leaders, its heroes, its legacy. Who are these warriors from the east? Who are the Tiandi? Who are the Nuxia? Who are the Zhongjun? Who are the Shaolin? What do they want from Heathmore? Are the Wu Lin just seeking a new home? New land to conquer? Resources? Redemption? Salvation? Do they want to install a new true emperor? Are they taking back what they feel is lost? No. None of this was expanded upon. We have had no new Wu Lin since John Hu. And while the community screams and gnashes its teeth about the injustice of not having more Vikings, about not having a Blackbeard pirate, about wanting rapier heroes, and about just needing barehanded hero fighters, the greatest source of weapons and heroes of the ancient world is being ignored and pushed aside, and for what? For more heroes like Virtuosa? An Outlander who isn't even really an Outlander, as she comes from Ashfeld, but isn't really a knight either because she doesn't agree with them? Oh yes, that's what I needed. A quirky modern teen in my For Honor game. That totally beats out the potential of a Mulan referential hero, or a nod to Sun Tzu, or a badass Jian sword-wielding scholar of death, or a gorgeous maiden of battle wielding bladed umbrella like we see in something like Where Winds Meet. No. Obviously the better option was a bitch with a pig poker with the charisma of a teen twit who's begging you to follow her on her socials. Where was I? I went off there for a second. I'm sorry, hold on. Right, that's right. What I'm getting at here, what I think I'm trying to hammer in on, if you couldn't tell, is that I think For Honor's priorities have been mixed narratively. I'm not saying the Outlanders, or hell, even Virtuoso, were bad decisions, but they were mistimed. Instead of focusing on Horkos and Chimera, we could have focused on the Wu Lin and the manner in which they messed with everything. You introduced a new faction. You introduced the idea that there was more to the world outside of Heathmore. You showed us something incredible, For Honor. And instead of capitalizing on it, instead of jumping on that, instead of making use of it, you instead pushed it to the side, gave us one hero and a pat on the head, and sent us back upstairs with a cup of water to drink. Allusion to the Grinch. I know it's past Christmas, but I felt the need to do that. It's not fair and it's not right to the Wu Lin or to us. So many people are complaining about the Outlanders because you think that they're poorly balanced, or because they break from the lore of the game, which was supposed to be about the 3 factions. And you know what? I don't entirely disagree with that second part. I think the Outlanders were going to happen. There's no question the Outlanders were just going to be a thing. That's just how it is. If you want to keep adding heroes to For Honor, eventually you're going to have to break from the 4 factions that exist. And so the Outlanders had to be a thing. I don't deny that. But you didn't need to do it at the expense of the Wu Lin. What you could have done is spent all of year 3 as a Wu Lin based year. Talk about how each of the factions reacted to the Wu Lin. With that, you could have added new Wu Lin heroes, new maps, all new stuff for just the Wu Lin's arrival. Then in year 4, pick up with all that Cataclysm stuff, all that Harbinger stuff, and go from there. Then you could have done it, and we could be on year 10 right now with all this going on. But no. So in answer to the question of what is going on with the Wu Lin, frankly, not much good. I'm glad that they're getting what they have now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad we have a season dedicated to them. I'm glad we've got a new hero skin for them. I'm glad that this season is all about the Wu Lin and not just about the Wu Lin being referenced. I'm glad we're finally getting a new hero. Better late than never, I suppose, but keep in mind something else. This will be the Wu Lin's 6th hero. 6th. You are aware each of the original factions had 6 heroes by the end of year 1, right? By the end of year 1, the Knights, Vikings, and Samurai all had 6 heroes. We're in year 9. The Wu Lin are finally getting their 6th hero. The Outlanders had a 6th hero before we even got to this season. The Wu Lin have been ignored, and it's a crime. And I know, some of you out there will say, well, we don't like the Wu Lin, that's why. And to you I say, all right, fine, you don't like the Wu Lin. You don't like the Wu Lin. I can't make you like them. I can't make you appreciate them. I can't make you do that. But for those of us with a modicum of common sense, we recognize the problem here. So those of us with common sense, join me in begging For Honor. Please, don't let this be the last thing you do with the Wu Lin. Don't just add this hero and be done. There is so much potential in these warriors from the East. You've slept on them too long. Give us more seasons with them. Give us more heroes, more maps, more hero skins. You have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. This has been my rant about the Wu Lin. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in my next one. Take care.